I am a 19-year-old female who has been with my boyfriend, a 22-year-old male, for about 4 years now. We're both from New York. I was born and raised here, while he moved here from a Middle Eastern country when he was 10 years old. This becomes important later on. However, I'm also from an ethnic family, from a similar culture to his, although I wasn't raised with any importance on culture. So when we first started dating, everything was good, but he was very much against the idea that I would present myself as a feminist. He said he would convert me from being a feminist to someone who doesn't identify as that. That was fine because I have my own identity, and I took it as a joke, but he didn't give up telling me why it's wrong to be a feminist. It was pretty lighthearted at first, but somehow over the years, it became pretty severe. One time, around 1 year ago, he told me that if I didn't denounce being a feminist right then and there, that he would leave me. So, of course, to save my relationship, I did. It kind of broke my heart, but I moved on from that. A little while after that, we were having another argument over a phone call. In our cultures, mine not so much, but in his, this is more common. There are some men that marry 4 women at the same time, and I absolutely consider that cheating. I'm very vocal about how against that I am, and we were arguing over that. This was about 2 years ago, but I can't forget it. I said it's cheating, that's all I said, and in return, he called me an ungrateful butt, which still hurts me so badly to this day. He cursed at me some more and told me that if I didn't take back what I said, that he would break up with me. I was in tears, and I ended up doing what he asked. There was also a time when he didn't let me speak to my best friend for 6 months. Every time I think back to that time, I don't remember a second of it, but I remember exactly how I felt. I panic every single time. I was so depressed and had absolutely no one to talk to. There have been other times that we've had fights. For example, he's not okay with me wearing leggings. I was going back to my home country 2 years ago, and it was the middle of August, so my mom asked me to put leggings on. I did, and when he found out, he didn't speak to me for a week. I also am in the same engineering team at college as his best friend. One day, he came to visit us both. The 3 of us were just hanging out, and I was contributing to the conversation. But after his friend left, he got insanely mad at me, telling me that if his friends are around, that I need to simply back off and speak when spoken to, and that I embarrassed him in front of his friend by joking around. He once compared me to his friend's girlfriend, saying that she does all his assignments for him while he has to ask me to do his assignments. Because he's on his engineering internship right now, so he asks me to do his work. The difference is, she's an English major and I'm an engineering major, so I tried to do his assignments, but I was already so bombarded with my own. Another time, he asked me to pick him up on a pretty cold day, and I was on my way, but I lost signal, so no data and no way to call him. Took a wrong turn, and my GPS stopped working. I was kind of lost and ended up being 40 minutes late, and I do have a habit of being late to places, so I kind of understand why he was so mad. When I got there, he was very mad at me. He was in my car, screaming at me while I cried, and I had to do everything I could to make him stay and not leave. Fast forward to early July this year, he was going through my phone and saw that I texted my male cousins on Instagram, as well as a 17-year-old kid who's going to be coming to my college this year, and asked to meet up because he wanted some guidance on the courses and getting around, to which I said sure. He blew up worse than I've ever seen and kicked me out of his car, telling me that he needs a break from me for a month. He would text me good morning and good night, and that's about it, but he still met me on the weekends for, well, you know. He said he needed to think about what he wanted to do after what I'd just done. Well, that brings us here. About 3 weeks ago, he met me and told me he thought about it, but that I wouldn't like it. He said that if I want to stay with him, I have to earn him back on the free market. So, if he likes someone, he's free to go after them, and that he would evaluate me every quarter, so every school semester. He said that he would have my Instagram, but I wouldn't be able to have his just because of the condition of having to earn him back. His other requirements include me learning to cook, me being more disciplined, including me finishing a painting for him that I've been working on for 2 years, which I swear I'm trying, but the art block is really getting to me, and me putting on a headscarf, which I never thought I would ever do at such a young age, but I feel like I have to for him now. I just feel so hurt by this condition. I admit I'm not entirely innocent either. I became really depressed around July last year and started being very cold and distant with everyone in my life, and he's still very hurt over that, so I get it. I'm just not sure if I'm the one at fault. While I was depressed, I would sit in my room for hours staring at my wall, and because of that, I wouldn't be able to reply to him, which made him hurt and mad, so I understand. I failed 3 classes as well, which is so weird for me because I've been an A student my entire life, but I am an engineering student, and it's ending the life of me. I'm someone who grew up reading romance books, and I always wanted a romance book type love, and he's just been so dry with me ever since that day in July. He never says he loves me anymore. I get why, but it hurts. I know I screwed up, but I can't figure out who's in the wrong. All my friends tell me I've been gaslit, but I don't know. He's also very caring at times. He buys me chocolates and birthday presents, and gives me encouragement when I need it. But sometimes I also need his words to know that. He comes from a broken home, parents fighting all the time, while I come from a very, very privileged background. And he says that this is something that gets to my head, so I just don't know anymore. I don't know if I've been wrong the entire time, or if I'm being gaslit. I genuinely don't know anymore, and I've been crying every single night for 2 months now because I'm just so lost. I don't know who to tell. If I tell my family or friends, it would be my perspective they'd be hearing, so of course they'd be on my side. What if my mind is screwing with me and I'm the one in the wrong? If I am, please tell me. I'm not even sure if I'm remembering or interpreting things right anymore. I don't know if my mind is messing with me or not at this point. I just needed to get it off my chest. To add, I forgot to mention, one of his other conditions for me staying with him is learning his language, which is turning out to be very difficult for me, and I feel like my efforts just aren't appreciated. Almost forgot, I should clarify. He does say that he would never be disloyal to me when it comes to multiple wives. We are able to put a condition forbidding that in the marriage contract, and when I told him I would, he kind of flipped a bit and said, I shouldn't need to do that if I trust him, and that it's disrespectful. I talked to my parents about it, who are absolutely in favor of me putting that clause in. My boyfriend wants to get engaged this year, and I do too, but I guess I'm not going to receive the dreamy proposal I always dreamed of. He'll just come to ask my parents for my hand, and there's no way I would get married without it. But he said if I put it in, he'll put a clause saying I always have to wear a headscarf, or else he'll divorce me. I don't get it. How can cheating be equivalent to having a headscarf on? He says that I'm a good girlfriend, but not wife material yet. Now for an update. Thank you for all your comments. It really means a lot to me. A lot of people have been asking me how I'd react if my sister or friend said all this to me about their relationship. And to be honest, I would be furious. But the only thing is, what if I keep remembering everything wrong and my own mind is messing with me? What if I'm just victimizing myself without even knowing and making him out to be the bad guy? That's what I'm afraid of. Another update. I want to thank you all for your comments. They really mean a lot to me. I needed to hear all that. I've been so anxious lately, and it's been giving me heart palpitations. I do realize that before I can do anything else, I need to find the true me I've buried somewhere, so I'm going to try and heal myself first. As for my boyfriend, I had a talk with him about how much his condition of earning me back on the open market hurt me. He bought me chocolates and told me that while at the moment there is no one else, there might be. And that the reason he said that to me is because I get things done under pressure, and he wanted to pressurize me. I'm not sure what's going on anymore, but I do know that before I do anything, I need to find myself. A couple of people asked whether my family and friends know. My younger sister knows that my friends don't like him, and my best friend is very against this. She's been with me ever since middle school, and she was here for it all. She says that if I marry this guy, she's going to tell my parents everything, which I think is quite telling of an outsider's view of how I've been treated. She's really been my rock. He has met my parents a few times and mostly spent his time talking politics with my dad, so my parents aren't really aware of what's going on, and they, especially my dad, really like him. They like that he makes good money and seems to know where he's headed in life. But if I told my mom and dad even 10% of what I've written here, I know they'd never let me see him again, because I am hurt, and the most important thing for my parents is my happiness. They've raised me to be strong, and I feel like I'm disappointing them. This just brought back other little things in my mind. Like, the week after he kicked me out of his car, he met me and went through my phone, which I'm okay with as I have nothing to hide. But also, that day I baked cookies for him. I baked a batch of 6, and I accidentally burned 2. My family ate 1 each, and I saved the one that was left for him, not having any myself because I wanted him to have it. It broke my heart how he didn't appreciate it, but instead told me how stingy it was of me to bring him 1 cookie. It kind of shattered me because I really did pour all my heart into it. A couple of people asked me whether he'd let me work, and he's very against it. He makes good money and is also an engineer. He says he prefers me to stay home, and that since I want to work so badly, after we have kids, if he feels that I'm not giving them enough time, he'll make me stop working. My mom is an engineer, and my dad is a doctor, and he says that because they both work, I was neglected. That's not true at all. I have the most amazing parents, and I'm so eternally grateful for them. But he's hell-bent on telling me that I've been neglected. Also, other little things, like I was breaking out a while back, and he would keep telling me that it's because I'm unhygienic and don't wash my face. I tried to explain that it's not because of that, but he's just so hell-bent on it. It hurts. Not to mention the fact that whenever I break out or something like that, he always points it out. I get that he's a very honest and blunt person, but it sort of chips away at my confidence. I was pretty excited to have learned a bit of his language already, and I called him and told him that I was so proud of myself for it, and I asked him, "How are you?" in it, to which he simply said, "Yeah, that's not impressive, bro. Even my friends can say that." It hurts. I think I'm trying, but it hurts when my efforts aren't appreciated. All I know is that I need to find myself again. I stayed in New York City for him instead of leaving for college. I did so much, but I don't feel loved anymore. Especially when he told me that once we have kids, he would let our son go off to college, but a daughter only if she had brothers in that place. Otherwise, he would go with her. I want my children to have the freedom and love my parents have given me, and I want my children to have the happiness that my parents have given me. I couldn't imagine making my daughter be a victim to all this. I look at my mom and dad, and I just wish he loved me the way my dad loves my mom. One last thing, I had a statue of David by Michelangelo on my desk, which he said I had to break and throw away, and that if he saw it again, he was done with me. Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. Why would you want him back? The reason you got depressed last year is because he treats you like worthless garbage, and that's how you are seeing yourself. There are literally billions of men in the world, and 90% of them are better than this one. Even if you did win him back, what would your life be like? You would become a shadow. Make no mistake, wife 2, 3, and 4 would be introduced into your marriage if you stayed with him. You deserve better. Value yourself. Comment 2. Let him go. More importantly, change your phone number and lose his. You're 19. You want to spend the rest of your life dealing with this nonsense? He's broken. Don't let him break you. And he has no right to go through your phone or complain about anything you wear or who you talk with. You don't belong to him. Now, for the update. I'm not sure if I made the right decision, but it's been a day since I decided to focus on myself and question my relationship. I went to a coffee shop near my apartment to clear my head. I ran into my old friend Mia, who I hadn't seen in a while. We caught up and she mentioned how I seemed different lately. I told her about my struggles with my boyfriend and how controlling he has been. Mia suggested I reach out to some other friends for support. Feeling encouraged, I decided to text a few friends to meet up for lunch. During lunch, I mentioned my boyfriend's recent demands, and everyone was surprised. They asked me why I was still with him, and I shrugged it off. I returned home and found a message from my boyfriend. He told me he would be waiting for me at his place to talk. I reluctantly went over to his apartment, feeling anxious. When I arrived, he was playing video games and barely acknowledged me. I sat down on the couch, trying to start a conversation. He changed the subject and asked me to cook dinner for him. I hesitated but agreed, thinking it would lighten the mood. While cooking, he brought up my friends and how he didn't like them. I was taken aback and asked him why it mattered. He yelled that they were a bad influence and I needed to cut ties. I stood there, spatula in hand, feeling trapped. We ended up in a heated argument about my friendships. He accused me of not taking him seriously and stormed out of the kitchen. I finished dinner alone, feeling the tension in the air. He came back, sulking, and sat down at the table without speaking. I tried to break the silence, but he just glared at me. The night ended awkwardly, and I went home feeling unsettled. A few days later, I got an invitation to a family birthday party for my cousin. My boyfriend insisted I shouldn't go because he wasn't invited. I told him I wanted to see my family, but he didn't budge. I decided to go anyway, knowing I needed support from my family. At the party, I felt relieved to be away from the chaos and enjoyed catching up with everyone. My cousin asked about my boyfriend, and I hesitated before answering. I mentioned some of his controlling behavior, and my cousin was shocked. She suggested I consider whether this relationship was healthy for me. The next day, I got a call from my cousin saying she saw my boyfriend at a local bar. Apparently, he was with another girl who looked familiar. I confronted him about it, and he denied everything, getting angry at my accusation. I told him I wasn't going to just take his word anymore. He snapped, telling me I was overreacting and threatened to break up with me. I don't know what's going to happen next. I'm just really confused and overwhelmed right now. Like I've been feeling so trapped, and he just keeps making it worse. I don't want to lose him if there's a chance we can fix this, but at the same time, I don't think I can keep ignoring all the red flags. I might update if something major happens, but for now, I'm just trying to figure out what I want and need. Edit. I wanted to clarify that I've been in this relationship for nearly 4 years, and recently, I've started to see some of the harmful effects of his behavior. My friends and family are concerned, which has pushed me to really consider my situation. I know I need to prioritize my well-being moving forward. Am I the idiot for leaving my disabled boyfriend after he became verbally abusive and his mom defended him? I have been with my boyfriend since high school. Unfortunately, he got into a car crash and became disabled below his waist. I wish to be by his side during his recovery. Disabilities have never been a deal breaker for me, and I loved him. So while this is going to be a struggle at first, I believed that we would be able to overcome this. I tried to participate in his recovery by being there with and for him during physical therapy. I moved into his parents' house to help them take care of him because he is unable to do many tasks without assistance. My job is very close to their house, and my manager allows me to clock out in case his parents need my help with things like getting him to the hospital. But my boyfriend just completely shut down. I understand that this is a life-changing injury, and at such a young age, it is absolutely devastating, but he just doesn't want me anywhere near him. I tried to take him out to concerts, plays, organize picnics, trips, just to make him believe that his life didn't end with his injury and that he is capable of living a fulfilling life. But he was just indifferent to it all. Therapy doesn't seem to help him because he still seems to be completely dissociated from everything. I couldn't see him like this anymore, and I demanded that he tell me everything that's on his mind. He just said that he is angry about everything, that he feels like I am here only out of moral obligation, that he doesn't feel like a proper boyfriend because he can't do anything for himself, that he wants to be a real man, but he isn't even able to make love to me anymore. I tried to be empathetic and told him that if I have been here for this long after the accident, it is obviously not an issue for me because I still love him. He just scoffed, and it seemed like he didn't believe me. Now it has come to a point where he is throwing things at me, demanding that I leave the room. He is ignoring me, and when he is not, he insults me. He is even throwing the food I bring him on the floor like a child. He has become emotionally hurtful, and I would be lying if I said that I still love him. I genuinely wanted to be there for him because I have seen stories where people, after intense physical therapy, manage to get back on their feet and walk with some assistance. And I believe that he might be able to do it too. I believe that miracles exist, and the human body is a fascinating thing. Maybe he could walk again. He just needed a lot of work and faith in himself. But he has become so nasty, rude, and hurtful that, I don't know, I think I just fell out of love with him. I approached his mother and told her that I feel like I probably don't love him anymore because he has been so hurtful towards me for more than 2 years now, and I just can't endure it anymore. I don't deserve this. His mother immediately got defensive, saying that he has suffered a great psychological trauma after the accident, and it is normal for him to be so depressed. I completely understand that, but it doesn't give him a green light to be so hurtful towards people who are actually trying to help him. His mother asked me to stay because my boyfriend needs my support, but judging from his behavior, he doesn't want or need me at all. Maybe he is doing it on purpose to push me away, but at this point, I don't care anymore. I can't help someone who doesn't want to be helped. I'm tired. I have tried for a long time. He has shut me out. I want to break up with him, but I would feel like an absolute terrible human being for leaving a person behind when they need me the most. But at the same time, I can't endure this anymore. I want to leave, but I don't want to be that person, if you know what I mean. I am at a loss. I need advice. Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. First of all, I want to acknowledge the truly selfless thing you have done for more than 2 years. Besides taking care of your boyfriend, have you dealt with the grief of losing the life that you planned with him? It must have been devastating for you too. If you have suppressed your own feelings, then please get therapy to take care of yourself. Next, this is an hurtful relationship. The reason why he treats you this way is no longer relevant. You need to get out for your own mental safety. His mother is defending her son because this is also a tragedy for her, but that does not make her right. Don't let her guilt you into staying. I wish you the best. Comment 2. You gave it 2 years. That is more than enough time. He isn't just depressed, he is being hurtful. His tragedy does not give him a free pass to abuse others. Yes, you should leave, but do not expect his parents to be on your side. You are basically a live-in nurse at this point, and they are only looking out for themselves and their son. They do not have your best interest at heart. I would make plans to leave quietly. Get all important documents out of the house and anything of value. Tell them you are leaving after you have other arrangements made. Now, for the update. A week after the confrontation, I decided to stay with my parents for a while. I really needed some stability in my life. My boyfriend's mom was blowing up my phone asking me to come back. She wanted me to support her son, like that was even possible. I ignored her calls. For the first time in months, I was focusing on my own needs, and it felt kind of nice. So I was at my parents' place, right? We had this family dinner, like we always do on Sundays. My dad was asking all about my plans. He was super interested in what I was up to, which was nice. I told him I was taking some time for myself, but he wanted more details, of course. My younger brother piped up and talked about how much he missed my boyfriend. He actually asked if we were still together. I just kind of brushed it off. I didn't want to get into it, especially not in front of everyone. During dinner, my mom noticed I was a bit distracted and asked if everything was okay. I just smiled and changed the subject. I asked her about my brother's new job. That seemed to work. But later that night, she brought up my boyfriend again. She insisted that he really needed my help. A few days later, I got a text from my boyfriend asking if we could talk. I was surprised. We agreed to meet at this coffee shop near his parents' house. When I got there, he was already sitting down, looking anxious. He asked me how I was doing, but his tone just felt so dismissive. Then he said he missed me, but it felt really hollow. I pointed out that he had pushed me away, and now he wanted me back just like that. He tried to blame his behavior on his injury, but I wasn't having it. We were having this quiet argument, and people were looking at us. He accused me of abandoning him during his toughest time. I shot back that I couldn't support someone who didn't want help. I wasn't going to be the punching bag just because he was having a bad day. His voice started to raise, and a barista came over to ask us to keep it down. At that point, he was just so frustrated. He threw his coffee cup on the floor. I was shocked and stepped back. The barista sided with me and asked him to leave. He stormed out, leaving me behind in this awkward mess. The next day, his mom texted me, telling me how disappointed she was in my actions. I didn't even bother responding. I was done with that part of my life. I decided to focus on my own life. I needed to do something for me, so I started attending yoga classes to help me unwind and regain my confidence. At the yoga studio, I met new people. These connections felt so much more genuine than what I had back home. One evening, my new friends and I went to this local art gallery opening. While we were chatting, I heard about this community project that was looking for volunteers. I signed up on the spot. I felt empowered to contribute and actually make a difference. Meanwhile, my ex was still trying to reach out. I ignored all his messages. Then, a few weeks later, I got a message from a mutual friend about a surprise party for my ex. I decided to go. I was kind of curious about how he had been doing. When I got there, the atmosphere was so tense. My ex was distant, just mingling with our friends. I overheard him talking about me. He was saying some really negative stuff, claiming that I had abandoned him. I couldn't just stand there and listen to that, so I confronted him in front of everyone. I asked him to stop spreading those lies. Things took a turn. Friends started to take sides. Some of his friends sided with me, saying they were concerned about his behavior. I calmly left the party. I wasn't about to get into it with him in front of everyone. It just wasn't worth it. Edit. After the party, I received a lot of support from friends who understood my situation. Some were disappointed in my ex for his behavior, which was a relief to hear. I also learned that he was in therapy and attending support groups, but that didn't change how he treated me. I'm focusing on my own healing now. Am I the idiot for confronting my husband after his coworkers kept calling me his sister? My husband, I'll call him Josh, and I have been together for 6 years, married for 4, and we don't have kids. We have a really healthy and communicative relationship. We're both pretty easygoing, and I really love him. He started working at a large accounting firm about 3 years ago, and from what he tells me, he loves it there. He's made a lot of friends through his job, and he goes out with them for drinks and social events quite often, and I've been totally okay with that. I'm quite introverted, so I've never been interested in meeting his colleagues or work friends, nor have I asked to. I've got my own circle of friends, and I'm fine with us having separate friend groups. After what happened yesterday, it only just occurred to me that he has never actually asked me if I'd like to meet any of them or go to one of his work events. I guess that's important context. Anyway, I'll start with what happened a few months ago that I had brushed off until now. I was at a bar with some friends for a couple of Friday after work drinks, and a guy approached me. He was there with some friends too. He looked slightly familiar, but I hadn't met him before. He seemed friendly enough, and he asked me, "My name, right?" I think I must have just given him a confused look because he followed up with, "I'm Jake. I work with Josh." I realized that I recognized him from some photos on my husband's phone. I don't use social media except for a private Instagram, so I'm not sure if he posted the photos anywhere. But we've got a very trusting relationship, so I look in his photos sometimes. Don't hate me. This is where it gets a bit embarrassing. I'm a bit socially awkward, and so I struggled to end the conversation, but he just kept talking at me. I guess he was already a couple of beers deep. But while he was talking, he said something like, "It's great that you guys are still so close. I haven't talked to my brother in ages." At the time, I was like, huh? But I just assumed he was drunk and not making sense, so I ignored it. He started to get a little flirty, so I turned to my friends, and we left shortly after that. I didn't say anything to them about it, and it didn't seem like a big deal to me. I also decided not to tell my husband that I had met his coworker Jake. Not to hide it, but because I figured the guy wouldn't even remember talking to me, and I didn't want to make it awkward for Josh at work by telling him his colleague tried to hit on me. I just thought, no harm, no foul. But yesterday morning, I was out walking our dog, Monty, He's a cross between a few breeds and has very unique markings. This matters, I promise, and was on my way to my regular cafe, which is in town. I was waiting in line to order, and the guy in front was an older man. He got his coffee and turned around, but stopped and looked at my dog and said, "Hello, Monty." Monty was super excited to see him, apparently, and so I guessed that the guy was another colleague of Josh's because Josh brings the dog to the office a couple of times a week. I thought it was sweet, to be honest, so I smiled at him and said hi. He introduced himself. I guessed correctly that he was a colleague, but then he said something like, "Aren't you a good sister?" walking his dog for him. I was so confused that I didn't even know how to react at first, so I stumbled on my words and just said, "It's my dog." I regret it, but I genuinely couldn't bring myself to correct him and say that I'm Josh's wife and not his sister. It was just too awkward, and I just wanted to leave because I think it was suddenly dawning on me what might have been going on. He asked me something about sharing a dog, but I was able to escape the conversation by being next in line to order my coffee, and he left. I seriously don't know what to do, because what on earth? Do I even ask my husband about this? Part of me is just assuming or hoping that it's a mistake, that he doesn't talk about me much at work, and they assume we are related because we both have brown hair. But the thought that he has been telling his coworkers that I'm his sister, and evidently they have seen what I look like, so they must have seen photos, makes my stomach churn. I don't even know how I would broach the subject with him. I need some help. What would you do in this situation? I have only told one friend what happened because it's so strange and embarrassing, and she has jumped straight to time to plot his downfall, because she's my ride or die, love her, but I don't want to immediately assume the worst or ruin my marriage over something that could be nothing. I'm sorry for the long and rambling post, but I would really appreciate any and all advice. To add, holy moly, thank you to everyone who commented with some advice. I haven't read all of them, but I really appreciate the suggestions from you all. Now for an update. Josh came home at about 2:30 a.m. last night, but he was drunk, so he just went straight to sleep, which is fine by me because I really didn't want to have this conversation in that state. I've just woken up, but he's still sleeping. The first thing I want to clear up. I've seen a lot of people suggesting I have crippling social anxiety or am severely introverted, which I suppose you could glean from the way I explained what happened, but I'm not. I meant that I'm slightly introverted in that I'm not the most eager to meet lots of new people at once, especially a bunch of finance guys whose weekends consist of unending sports bar beers, where I assume I would be mansplained everything until my ears bleed. Probably a negative assumption, but I'm sure some of you know what I mean. I suppose you could say that I'm confrontation averse, in that I'm quite laid back and prefer to keep a conversation easy and positive. I don't like it when things are awkward, and correcting when people misidentify me is one of those things, but I'm not terrified of confrontation. Also, my husband and I do share some mutual friends. I didn't explain that well, but our lives are not entirely separate. The way he acts toward me around our mutual friends is extremely affectionate and normal. It is only his work friends that I have never interacted with. I've also seen some people suggest that what is going on is equivalent to my husband Harim and harassing me, and I'm hopelessly wondering whether I should break up with him, or that I'm foolish for thinking my relationship was healthy when it clearly isn't. Like, come on, cut me some slack. I'm a real person, and this is an entirely alien and bizarre situation for me. My first reaction wasn't to assume the worst, but I do appreciate that you all have made me certain that it is a big deal. I guess I needed confirmation that the things that happened are enough proof that Josh has been purposefully lying, and they weren't just mix-ups. I'm going to talk to him today and ask him directly why he's telling his coworkers that I'm his sister. I followed the advice of writing my points down so that they don't get lost if I get emotional. I will do my best not to let him evade the topic, and I hope he has some proof that his colleagues know I'm his wife. I know that's not the dramatic confrontation you all were hoping for, but it's a Saturday, and I can't wait. Wish me luck. Thank you all. Now for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. I would be making a surprise lunch visit where I make sure to let everyone know I'm Jake's wife. It's so great to meet everyone. Then I would seriously reconsider if this is the marriage you want, the marriage you're proud of. He said it for a reason, and it was to play the single bachelor. You deserve better. Comment 2. You need to surprise him in front of his coworkers. Give him the kiss of a lifetime and say you have the best brother ever. No, but for real, you need to sit him down and tell him you know he's telling people you're his sister. And what is that about? Now, for the update. I'm not ready to share the update, but I'll give you a quick summary of what's been happening. A week after the confrontation with Josh, I brought up the coworker incident during dinner at home. Josh seemed surprised and confused, claiming he had no idea why anyone would say that. I mentioned my conversation with Jake at the bar, and Josh brushed it off as just a coworker joke. A few days later, he invited me to a company picnic. During the picnic, I met more of his coworkers and overheard someone mentioning Josh's sister again, which made me uncomfortable. I approached Josh about the comments, and he laughed it off again, saying it was just a misunderstanding. After the picnic, I did some casual research on his work culture and found a social media group where employees shared personal stories. I saw a post from Jake that included a photo of Josh and a woman labeled as his sister. I screenshot it and saved it for later. The next family gathering with Josh's parents was the perfect time to address it. During dinner, Josh's mom joked about how Josh looked like his sister, and Josh tried to lighten the mood. After dinner, I took Josh aside into the kitchen, showing him the screenshot from the social media group. He got serious and asked where I found that, claiming Jake was just being a jokester and it was harmless. The argument escalated, and he finally admitted he might have mentioned her as his sister in passing at work. We reached a breaking point, and I insisted it needed to be fixed. I proposed that Josh clarify their relationship at work. He reluctantly agreed. The next week, he sent me a message saying he spoke to his coworkers and shared a group chat screenshot where he corrected the sister misunderstanding. Just when I thought things were settling down, Josh mentioned a work retreat coming up, and I felt my stomach drop when he said Jake would be there. Josh promised he would make sure everyone knew who I was. Mini update. I attended the work retreat that following weekend with Josh. We arrived early to help set up. I was introduced to more of his coworkers and the atmosphere was welcoming. Later, while mingling, I noticed Jake. He approached us, greeted Josh, and then turned to me. He made a comment about how he was surprised to see Josh's sister there. I felt a pit in my stomach. Josh quickly corrected him, saying I was his wife. Jake laughed it off, but I sensed something was off. Josh assured me he would talk to Jake later to clear things up. If you like this video, you'll probably like these too. Also, while you're here, please consider subscribing. It's your support that keeps this channel alive and allows me to make better and longer videos. Have a great day.